The Fallout games always have given a certain choice. This choice was sometimes more, sometimes less easy to see for the players. I for myself got tricked into siding with somebody I didn't like 1 or 2 times when playing Fallout New Vegas. But for today's episode I won't be talking about that, but instead I'm going to take a look at the game that makes it much more clear and easy to choose and stick to a side. I'm talking about nothing less but the phenomenal game Fallout 4. But first, the intro. So, first of all, which factions are out there to side with? The Minutemen, the Institute, the Railroad, and the Brotherhood of Steel. Even though Bethesda tried to make it not too clear who's the good and who's the bad guys, even a little child could tell it at least to some extent. The Institute is literally getting called the bad guys by the vast majority of the Commonwealth, while the other factions seem to be more on the light side. Let's take a closer look. The Institute is a collective of scientists which are feared because of their synths. Synthetic life organisms, or synths for short, are the endeavors of the Institute to create androids. And with that I don't mean the systems on your mobile phones, but actual androids with a goal to create a machine that's indistinguishable to a human being. And on the outside they succeed. The Institute doesn't tell their actual goals to anyone, and their leader always is a straw man, designated as father, while actually not being able to do much. The Institute is a working machinery with gears that keep turning with and without a father. Even if you decide to side with the Institute, you won't be able telling them to simply stop producing synths and using them to replace people. Yes, they replace people, similar to the replicants in Blade Runner. As said prior, it's not easy to see through the works, but my assumption is that the Institute actually thinks that they are the future of the human race. They find disgust in the wastelanders and are also scared that these who roam the surface could find and destroy them. To prevent this from happening, the Institute abducts people of the Commonwealth, uses their DNA to study and to produce more and better synths, and transforms the abducted people into super mutants before setting them free into the Commonwealth. The Institute also prevents the wastelanders of the Commonwealth from forming a new civilization by themselves because of their conception that the human civilization on the surface is lost anyways. The Institute has replaced many important people yet, which secretly served the Institute to keep things to their wishes. There are also synths, which forgot about their programming and alignment to the Institute. These synths were rescued by the Railroad. For rescuing the synths, whom the Institute sees as their machines and slaves, the Railroad searches for the synths, deletes their memories, which helps to hide them from the Institute and give them a new identity. Looking at them for short and rashly, the Railroad seems to be a good faction with Samaritan goals. Taking a closer look shows that this team of spies actually want to help people, but they think extreme and have no tolerance for lateral thinkers. The Railroad is convinced by the idea that the life itself is precious and should be protected without a doubt and no matter the costs. Getting philosophical, I'd say that we are based on who we were and who we want to be. Both of these things get taken when the Railroad deletes the synth's memory. They actually replace the memories with other ones in the memory den, which means the synths give up their actual identity and continue living as someone else. Someone they think they are. The Institute's argument that the Railroad is a bunch of dummies because they don't know what they're doing is weak in my opinion though. The Institute proclaims that some of the synths went rogue after being released by the Railroad. But that's something every person can do. That's the point. The free mind and free will of a person allows him to do as he pleases, if that's right or wrong. Becoming a raider is an option every person can take. A free synth is no exception of that. The actual point is that the Institute doesn't see the synths as people, but as machines with no rights, even though the synths aren't just programmed robots. They are actually alive and have a free will and mind. The Institute simply uses them like machines. Think about it as you will. Slavery is a crime against humanity, but deleting identities isn't the solution. The solution that comes up first doesn't have to be the best, and that's where the railroad messes up. Next, we have the Brotherhood of Steel, collecting technology and preventing the Wastelanders to collect just name technology for themselves, being well equipped and thinking that they are the superior faction. The Brotherhood of Steel shares quite some similarities to the Institute. The Brotherhood of Steel fights against the Institute with all of its might, but with another reason than for saving anyone. The Brotherhood of Steel are patriotic, conservative and very racist. So racist that they actually kill everything that's as intelligent as human without actually being human. Their goal is to get the world back to the way it was back then, before the bombs fell, before the Great War. In doing so, the Brotherhood of Steel fights and kills every ghoul, super mutant and synth they find, no matter if they are friendly or aggressive. Psych! Maction actually kills Paladin Dance if you refuse in doing it so yourself, even though Dance fought and helped defeating the Institute being a synth without knowing it himself all along. The Brotherhood lives, but doesn't let other people live the way they want to. They kill because they think their way of thinking is right. They tell people how to live their lives without actually liking them. The Brotherhood of Steel tries to prevent having too many outsiders or wastelanders in their own ranks, and yet they see themselves as shining knights who fight for the people. That's not objective, but personally, I just hate the Brotherhood of Steel to the goddamn core, and I even hate them tons more than the Institute itself. Last and very often least, the Minutemen. The good ones. Wanting to help everyone in less than a minute, they fight to protect the Wastelanders in the Commonwealth. They don't mind friendly ghouls or friendly super mutants. They accept them in their own ranks. The only problem this faction has is that their benevolent and generous concepts are more benevolent and generous than most of the people out there. That's what in our life, in our all-day lives, the laws are there for. They protect the people and their freedom, and they were written by wise people. Most of our civilization are not wise though, but merely egoistic cockroaches, wanting to enjoy their own life and not thinking further than the next step they take. Policemen don't have to be wise, nor generous or benevolent. They get paid to watch for the laws, to be complied with, and if they don't do as they have to do, the policemen get fired. You can't expect to find many people who want to fight, and if they have to die for protecting these principles just for the good thought of it. Especially in the post-apocalyptic world, people try to survive. They need to eat, and they need to take every straw they can. The Quincy massacre happened just because of that. The Minutemen had traitors in their own ranks, and the Quincy massacre destroyed them almost completely. Now it's up to the player if he wants the Minutemen to be rebuilt or not. The General is an important role in the Minutemen, cause he's the engine that keeps the machine rolling. Because the Minutemen don't have a good hierarchy or payment in their own. The General has to be a person people can look up to, like a shining star that follows gracious ideals. So, which one is the best faction? That's up to you. I, for my own part, think that the Minutemen are the least of the evils, but they do have their problems. If I'd have to side with a faction in the post-apocalyptic world, or especially in America, I'd pack my stuff and move to the Mojave Desert to join the NCR. Even though I'd prefer living in Canada, Japan, or Germany, but that's a different story.